This must be the fourth video over the last month that I have made documenting and talking about the BBC and their disgraceful blunders. In today's video, we have yet another one as the BBC have been caught lying once again as their biased lies continue to happen. In today's video, we will discuss the full story, whilst also going over all of the latest news from up and down the country. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to join our fast-growing community. The BBC has described Hezbollah as a Lebanese group on a children's news show, prompting furious backlash. In a show focused on the conflict in Gaza, a year on from October 7th, a presenter informed children watching at home about the fighting and how it came about. Discussing the current state of the war, where the fighting has spread elsewhere, the reporter for CBBC Newsround said, "There is now fighting between Israel and a Lebanese group called Hezbollah. Now these are old enemies, but the violence at the moment is linked back to the war in Gaza. What we've seen in the past couple of weeks is some of the same things happening, and families in Lebanon have had to leave their homes looking for safer places. The campaign against anti-Semitism has slammed the inaccurate reporting, which they say downplays the group's actions. It said, "At no point were Hamas and Hezbollah described as terrorists, with young viewers denied any insight into their belligerent motivations. Hamas were described as Palestinian fighters in Gaza, and Hezbollah as merely a Lebanese group. By not calling these groups what they are, terrorists, the report does not actually explain why any of this is happening. It is simply not accurate." Contrary to what BBC executives and spokesperson like to maintain, it is not BBC policy to avoid calling terrorism by its name. Newsround itself called 9/11 terrorism, attacks on shopping centres in Kenya terrorism, and the bombing of the Manchester Arena terrorism. The broadcaster came under fire last year when they failed to label Hamas as a terrorist group. Last month, a report found that the BBC repeatedly downplayed Palestinian terrorism whilst presenting Israel as an aggressive nation. The research led by British lawyer Trevor Asserson found that Hamas's actions were given far less weight than the Israeli Defense Forces. For the BBC, there is just one type of terrorism, it seems, that is not terrorism, and that is when Jews are the targets, the campaign group said. The report also revealed that the cooperation breached its own editorial guidelines over 1,500 times during the height of the conflict. A spokesman for Campaign Against Anti-Semitism said, "Another day, another instance of the BBC's double standards when it comes to terrorism that targets Jews. This time, it's in programming for children." Newsround's failure to describe Hamas and Hezbollah as terrorists, even when it has done so for other terrorist attacks around the world, represents not impartiality, but inaccuracy. The BBC is breaching its own charter. The corporation cannot shy away from the reality that, by refusal to call these anti-Semitic genocidal groups what they are, the broadcaster is contributing to the legitimization of extremist views and the radicalization of young Britons. I mean, does anyone still watch the BBC? Do you? Let me know yes or no in the comments. In other news, Chancellor Rachel Reeves may need to raise up to £25 billion in taxes to fund Labour's spending plans, according to estimates from the Institute for Fiscal Studies. The think tank's Green Budget Report, funded by the Nuffield Foundation and using economic forecasts from Citi, highlights the significant challenges facing Reeves as she prepares for her first budget on October 30th. Despite inheriting a difficult public finance situation, with taxes at historic highs and rising debt, Reeves has pledged to increase investment spending and funding public services. However, she faces constraints due to Labour's manifesto pledges not to raise key taxes, including income tax, corporation tax, national insurance, and VAT. IFS Director Paul Johnson warns that Reeves's first budget could be the most consequential since at least 2010. To avoid spending cuts and meet her pledge to borrow only for investment, Reeves would need to implement a £16 billion tax rise to balance the budget by 2028 to 29. This would be in addition to the £9 billion tax increase outlined in Labour's manifesto, totalling nearly £25 billion. Such a tax hike would surpass those implemented in July 1997 and October 2010, which were around £13 to £14 billion each. Despite this, Labour's commitment not to raise key taxes presents a significant challenge for the Chancellor in achieving this scale of increase. To meet this year's pay settlements and avoid future cuts to public services, Reeves would need to allocate an additional £30 billion for day-to-day spending by 2028 to 2029, according to IFS estimates. This comes as Labour claims to have inherited a £22 billion black hole in public finances from the previous government. Reeves has warned of tough decisions ahead, but rejected the notion of a return to austerity. Speculation abounds regarding Reeves's potential strategies for raising funds. The IFS suggests that changes to capital gains tax could be considered, though Director Paul Johnson emphasises the need for careful reform rather than a simple increase. Inheritance tax modifications are also rumoured to be under consideration. These potential changes come against a backdrop of strained public finances, with taxes at an all-time high and public services under pressure. The IFS notes that prisons, police and local councils are particularly affected. Paul Johnson highlights the Chancellor's dilemma, stating, "The temptation then is to borrow more, perhaps changing the definition of debt targeted by the fiscal rules." However, he cautions that this approach is not risk-free, given the UK's dual deficits in both budget and current account. Benjamin Nabarro, chief UK economist at Citi, offers a cautiously optimistic economic forecast for the UK. He suggests there is a notable opportunity for structural reform. However, Nabarro warns that the UK faces unique budget constraints compared to other advanced economies. He explained, "Unfortunately, large outstanding debt stocks and a current account deficit mean the UK faces budget constraints that many other advanced economies don't." Prince Harry has declared war on social media in a new interview. On World Mental Health Day, the Duke of Sussex joined the Anxious Generation author and social psychologist Jonathan Haidt for a conversation about smartphones, social media, and their impact on the youth population. The father of two joined the conversation about social media and mental health as part of Harry's Archewell Foundation 2024 Insight Sessions, public conversations, highlights of which appear in a new Insight report. The report covers the impact of technology, with the voices of youth front and centre, and is also a reason why Prince Harry and Meghan travelled to Colombia. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.